long as we can get confirmation that everybody can hear us, I think that we are going to be all right. All right, so first off, my name is Justin Thomas. Welcome to Top Shelf Fandom. I'm here with Heidi from Costume Co. We are going to be talking about The Last Duel, as well as Heidi just came from the premiere event at the, is it the...
Toronto International
I was
Film
going to say
Festival.
Toledo. I'm like, that's Ohio. Right?
TIFF
Yeah.
for short.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just saw it today. So we're gonna have a quick little chat about that
Yeah.
for this year's show. So
No, number one.
I'm doing whatever you want to do.
Yeah. No, number one, the first thing that we want to talk about is good old Susan Dunckel, who commissioned a video on The Last Duel. And that couldn't mean more to me because I have a issue. I love editing for other creators like Heidi, like yourself. And I found that I'm in quite the funk when it comes to putting out my own content that's like polished and pre-recorded and all the things that I do well behind the scenes, but I kind of get in my own head so much. And I think I was speaking to you, Heidi, like a month before Susan contacted me about how I was getting Eric Yeager's book about The Last Duel. I was so excited for this film, and then it's like kismet, right? Like Susan Dunckel is the reason that we'll be talking about what we're talking about today. Also, the reason that within this week we're gonna get a standalone video for The Last Duel. And me and her have had some great conversations about this topic in general. And this really is a very fascinating film. This is Ridley Scott, who, let's face it, he isn't getting any younger, but you know, he seems to be aging like a fine wine a little bit as well. He's kind of kicked that Robin Hood dust off his shoulder. But he also started his career with The Duelist, which is a Napoleonic age film about pretty much kind of similar, petty discrepancies or feuds, and that lead to, you know, these deadly duels. Now, this is a story that takes place in France. This is during the 100-Year War. Let me put that up. This is after Crécy, for any of you history buffs out there, but this is before Agincourt. So that means that we have King Charles in, which will become King Charles the Mad. He becomes syphilis-ridden. I did a video on Owen Glendower, the Welsh rebel or hero, whatever you want to consider him. The original mob dragon. Henry VII took up his mantle when he invaded to take over and fight Richard at Bosworth, because he knew the power in that mantle it was kind of like this idea of like King Arthur's court and all this. So France at this time, as France tends to be for feudal societies, is in a bit of a pickle, as they always seem to be. There's so many people, so many lords that have just gone against, you know, it's like, who do you fight for? Think of the War of the Five Kings in Game of Thrones. I'll use a lot of analogies for that. Think about that situation and think about, like, you know, like if everybody from, like, okay, say like Tully's from the Riverlands were like going for the crown, not just Robert against the Targaryens, right? Like everybody's going for the crown, and you know, you got to back the right guy. So you have these families that are disgraced. You have these families that fall out of favor, but also they're still around because it's literally said that they couldn't behead all of them because then they would have no nobles left. And I started out the video that I'm recording. I've been recording for 3 weeks now. That, you know, no land without lords, no lords without land. Meaning that, you know, land is that's where the money's at. You know, God ain't making any more. It's just the same thing as it is today with real estate. But we have these disputes that go on with a local court. So again, I'm going to always use Game of Thrones references here with Cruz.
Well, it kind of makes sense, Justin, because George based Game of Thrones, partly at least, on the 100 Years' War. He's a huge history buff. So that's a good, you know, connection there.
Yeah, it's just, you have to look at the feudal system and who everybody had to get AOKs from, who everybody had to get the, you know, sometimes just the pen on the paper for. And Cruz, this is our main protagonist in this film, and it's going to be told from 3 different perspectives. Now, this Cruz is played by Matt Damon. Now, the source material is from Eric Yeager. It's called The Last Duel. This is the last judicial duel in medieval France. In 1386, this takes place. So, again, that's still about 40 years before Agincourt. But that is not by any means the last duel that takes place, but this is the last judicial duel. We'll get to spoilers in a bit here, and we'll get to them definitely in my standalone video. But I found this case to be so fascinating because Susan brought it to me with the realization and the very relevant insight that this is very much a Me Too, hashtag Me Too era story, because this is a story about two men fighting over if these rape accusations are, valid or not. Let's let God decide. So the power lays with the words of men, and there's a lot of interesting aspects of that do connect us to our popular, or not popular, but just our social, atmosphere right now, our cultural atmosphere right now. And you can't disregard them, that this woman would have been burned at the stake if her husband loses this duel. But how did we get here? It's a very intriguing story that is being told from three different perspectives. The news from Venice Film Festival is mixed, but it's mostly positive here. And it's talking about how it looks like they're going to do the trial by combat, which is the Holy Trinity. I have it up here, which is pretty badass. It's axe, sword, and lance. They lock you in. Thousands of people want to go watch these two dudes fight. And there was towers to drop food to them. There is all these.
Well, that would have been a very cool event to have attended. I would think in that day.
Well, King Charles was in Flanders. Now this is the teenage King Charles with Isabella. So he's in Flanders. He actually postpones this a month to go with their celebration to honor Saint Becket, because Becket has become a martyr for the French, because Henry's knights killed him. And you have to remember, this is Normandy, in which both of these knights, one's a knight, one's a squire, come from. So there's all these festivities. There's thousands of people that gather around to go watch this trial by combat. And when we look at it from the beginning, if we look at Carouge, he is like a bull in a china shop. This is who Matt Damon is playing. This is the type of guy that he thinks he's doing everything right. He goes away to war. He goes to Scotland to go fight the English, meaning he lands in Scotland. He spends all of his money. He does not make any money over there because it's not a successful campaign. He was married before this, before he got married to this Margaret Thiebel, who is a daughter of a very noble family, but a twice disgraced knight. So a lot of these things don't make sense to me, but they also do. This guy was looking to excel himself within this feudalistic landscape, and he just seemed to keep making bad decisions. He seemed to keep butting his head up against the local court and going above his Count Pierre, played by Ben Affleck, which we'll get to, in order to suit his purposes. And he's not actually wrong in a lot of these disputes for his land. For instance, Carouge is a guy that had a father that was a captain of a castle in Normandy. If you're a captain of a castle, so this kind of comes down to what is law, what is tradition, and what is like a social contract, like Hobbes say, like a social contract. These things aren't set in stone, but usually if your father is a captain and you prove yourself as a warrior, as Carouge has, this is the first slight against him, you would get that captaincy, Heidi, if you know what I mean. Like, you would automatically assume that mantle of his father. But that's also not set in stone, right? So this is a time in which we have the new king, a teenage king, and new money, new blood is actually more valued because it's not really as tainted with all of these old school and old alliances, because everybody, there was like 4 different people going for, I think it might have been 6 different kings at one point about like 30 years ago. Like a lot of people were trying to be the king of France. So like it's pretty much like roll of the dice, you know what I mean, to pick the right guy. So you want to really understand that we're dealing with a landscape that is highly volatile. It is highly competitive, but also this is a guy that thinks, hey, I'm a knight. I'm doing my job. I'm going off to war when this, what we'd call a Josie now, is sitting at home making money, and I'm not getting awarded my father's position, not the lands in Normandy. And now his best friend, Legree, Adam Driver, plays Legree, is a gentleman in which is that new money. He is that
Mm-hmm.
new man. He is a very
Like almost self-made.
yeah. He is a he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have like this ancient Norman like nobility, right? But
Mm-hmm.
he also has this situation in which he is supposedly a good fighter, and this is what really kind of like caught me into the story even before Susan came and contacted me and sent me even more information on all of the source accounts on it, was how we always assume that like anybody that's over like 30 is a knight, and like there's no squires, right? Like there,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's not true. Like this guy only gets knighted the morning of his trial by combat so that he can fight as an equal. You could still be a squire at this time in France, and you know, have control over people, have control over lands, and all of these things. But these two are,
Yeah, because he's supposed to be like Matt Damon's character, I guess, is in his 40s, early
they
40s
both
type
are about the
thing.
same age,
There,
what they
and then
estimate.
his wife, his second wife, Judy Cormier, she's obviously quite a bit younger because she's his
Yes,
second wife. That's
Marguerite Tidville, or I'm not gonna be able to pronounce these French names very well, is very
yeah, it's
much
pretty
so.
good.
This is where I get into conflict, and I've talked to Susan about this a lot. Is that everybody seems to be making decisions that make sense, but at the same time they really don't. Like it's kind of like they're always in conflict with each other. Like Carouge loses because this is a time at the tail end of the Black Plague. Mind you, he lost his son, he lost his wife. Matt Damon's Carouge. He
Mhm.
remarries, but he remarries to, you know, he's a man that is ambitious, right?
Yeah, it's
He's
like a political marriage.
yes, but at the same time that doesn't really suit him because her father, the lands don't necessarily go to him. They go to the count, in which he's already went above the head of Ben Affleck, which I want to point out that during this filming of this, it was postponed due to COVID. So you had Ben Affleck was originally supposed to play Adam Driver's character, and that would have been like
Oh
this.
no way!
Yeah, this would
Really?
have been this added level of like Hollywood.
That would have been super meta.
Yeah, meta, right? And I think it would have been too much. But he plays Count Pierre, which I know you have some things to say about the haircuts and all that. That they actually seem to be on point. They could have dyed their hair with urine, and the Billy Cyrus mullet seems to be fairly accurate and so forth. But I think using Adam Driver was a very smart move, and he came in.
I
Yeah,
agree. I agree because I would have been like I kind like when I see Matt Damon, I kind of see him. No, sorry, not Matt Damon. When I see Ben Affleck, I kind of see Ben Affleck. I can't. I
yeah.
have a hard time distancing him from. Whereas Matt Damon, I can pretty much buy him. And Adam Driver, I mean, I love him in everything I've seen him in.
Yeah, he's such a good actor. He was a Marine.
Mm-hmm.
He can do the physicality. He is an excellent character actor,
Mm-hmm.
and he seems to be doing this part so well. So he is supposedly the godfather of Carouge's first daughter, and they die, of course, from the plague. And then they have this falling out. So before we even have these rape accusations from Carouge to Legree, from Matt Damon to Driver, for everybody trying to follow along with my rambling, we have a falling out, a very well documented falling out. Later on, Voltaire would write about it. We have actually a few primary sources that I can pull up as well. But there's this like, and they show this in the actual trailer. They show this famous. This is how much like animosity was between these two and how much it mattered. Is that they show this big handshake between these two gentlemen in the trailer. This was such a big deal. Eric Yeager's book documents this and talks about it, how they were both at this festivity, you know, and they go and shake each other's hands at the court, right? Like it's this big deal. So like this is before any of this, any of the major allegations come about. But Carouge is, again, he seems kind of like a Ned Stark, but not so honest. He seems very bullheaded, right? Like a bull in a china shop, like I like to say. He seems to like always just say, this should be mine. I'm going to make it mine. Okay, Count Pierre, Ben Affleck. I'm going to go above your head. So what happens when you go above? Okay, say that everybody was in the, say this is in the Riverlands. You got Halster Tully. You want some land in the Riverlands, and you don't get it from Halster, so you go to King Robert during that time, right?
Yeah, it's not going to go over
That's
well.
not going to, no, if you don't get it, you're fucked, right? Like, you are
Yeah.
screwed. This guy is just, like, so determined, and he's so, like, infatuated with, or so, like, consumed by the fact that he thinks he's owed this or owed that, which a lot of this, again, comes down to, like, you know, it's tradition, but it's not really law, right? Like, it's tradition to hand down a captaincy to your son. It is not the law. It is not like a linear thing. This land that he tries to get from Marguerite, his new bride, who is much younger. Her father was a twice shamed knight and a big traitor. Now, you can find very little information on him, but like they seem to always recognize that he's like very like shamed and has like lived like the only reason he's not beheaded is because they just couldn't afford to do it. But I failed to find anything on him like about exactly how that happened. But again, you had so many uncles of Charles, who is now King Charles, in his teen years that were, you know, running different parts of France, that I just imagine that, you know, he backed the wrong fella. So you have these disputes. So you have two petty real estate disputes. I guess I could call them petty, but, you know, Carouge looks at them as big deals. So he had a friend. Like, it was just like, if anybody's seen The Sopranos, when Meadow gets a new car and Tony, like, takes it from a guy that owes him money, that's her, like, Meadow's friend from high school's dad, and, like, gives her, like, the car that his dad gambled away, and she, like, rides to school, and he's like, here you go, honey. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like a smack in the face to take a gift from somebody that, you know, got it in a way that you don't think to be ethical, I guess. So, like, at the same time, Carouge's disdain is growing for Adam Driver's character, Legree, because he's not getting the deals that he thinks he should be getting. And much worse, all these things are going to his friend, right? So you have to think, what type of guy is that to take those things, right? Like, what type of guy is Adam Driver's character, Legree, to actually take this land when he knows his good friend, he's the godfather of his deceased daughter now, he's all of this, so he takes these things from this Count Pierre, all these things that Carouge feels that he is entitled to. And Carouge has now gone twice over the king's head and got nowhere, so he is absolutely screwed. Now let's move on to situation 3. Carouge actually just buys land in Normandy, Heidi. He buys land, right? Guess what you have to do? You just need to get the pen on the piece of paper from the local lord, Pierre. Remind you, Pierre is actually the king's cousin as well. But guess what Pierre does? Heidi, can you guess?
You mean when buying the land?
Yeah, all he needs is a signature.
He refuses to sign.
He refuses. That's like the straight up fuck you, right? that's
I guessed it though. I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah, like, it's just like, it's not funny, but it is. Like, it gets to this point where it's like, okay, so first off, he didn't get the captaincy, right? Like, he didn't become captain of this castle, this stronghold. Also, he was unable to get this this land that was his father-in-law, this disgraced knight, you know, Marguerite's dad's land. So all those things are kind of like understandable, right, to like some extent, because like nothing's written in stone on that. There's no law, it's just tradition, it's a social contract type deal. But then it's the third time, because he went over his head. Like, you know, if you work at McDonald's and you go over your assistant manager's head enough times, they're gonna fucking put you on dishes. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, they're not gonna be good with you. Like, so, you know,
you're gonna be on lobby duty.
Yeah, he bought the land straight up because he's looking to buy land. That's it. And he says, no, you can't.
I kind of like, okay, I know this is based on a true story, obviously, right? But I kind of like that this character, this Matt Damon character, he's not like a straight up hero type character. He's really flawed. And that's kind of more interesting to me because, you always would have like, you have the duel, you have, the genuinely good hearted character, the Ned Stark type character going against this other guy who could be or may not be a good guy. Yeah. I kind of like the fact that they both have shades of gray. There's some nuance there.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why this is such an interesting story, is because you have Carouge against Legree. Remind you, best friends now divided over pretty much real estate, right?
Which is, that's a little, there's a bit of a trope there, right? To, formerly good friends who've had this like falling out.
Yeah, falling out within the court. Now, Carouge, as I mentioned, goes over to Scotland. They invade England because if you're going to, in the 14th century, if you're going to invade England, you're going to go through either the Scots or you're going to go through the Welsh. Okay? That's what you do. They say, come on over. And I love it, too, because this is a really good example in Yeager's book, which I'll link below, about exactly like kind of like the details, the logistics of this whole situation. They bring over 50 plate metal caresses for the Scots, Heidi. Like they go over exactly what they bring. They go
Wow.
over the expenses because Cruise himself, and he's in his.
Does he actually say queer asses in the book or queer ass? Does he actually say
Yeah,
that?
and
Oh, he does.
I'll get in the Jaeger later.
Because I love armor, so you know.
Yeah, he does say correct. Now Jaeger, he taught at UCLA. He wrote a really good book. I think he romanticizes it a bit. I listened to a recent interview that Susan sent me with him. He seemed to be not that. Granted, it's been like 14 years since he wrote it, but he didn't seem to be all that. Like he was kind of like vague about things that he's very, as a matter of fact, of in the book, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, it is interesting to hear about all the money that like they spend to go on these campaigns. And so when he's away on campaign, again, Cruise is away. Legree, Adam Driver, is, making his money, rising up, that new money in court, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing his thing. Cruise comes back, he's broke. He is not so much a good guy in the sense of, even in Jaeger's book that kind of romanticizes this situation, you can tell that he is very much possessive of her, which I would think is a standard of the time. I'm not saying it's okay, but it's definitely probably like.
Well, does it mention if she's beautiful?
She is. She is known as
beautiful.
A beauty. Yeah, she is.
Okay,
known...
so that's the other thing.
Yes.
He might be a bit jealous, or
he doesn't trust her.
And he doesn't look. I mean, in the way they portray Matt Damon, he doesn't appear to be attractive. He's got some like really terrible gashes on his face.
Yeah, he keeps hitting people with swords, and they keep hitting him back. So like, you don't get too handsome.
So he's battle weary.
Yeah,
he's got.
It's not all Jaime Lannister over there. It's like more the Hound.
More the Hound. Yes.
Yeah. So like, you have this idea of, I've done everything right. Like I've been going off and fighting for my kingdom. I've been, my dad was a good. He served the crown. But again, he did marry a traitor's daughter. So we have a situation in which you pretty much have a guy that you could look at. Now, this is why they're telling this from 3 different perspectives, supposedly. You have Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, who it is worth really is worth noting that this is the first time they've written a screenplay together since Good Will Hunting, which is amazing that those two wrote Good Will Hunting at the age that they wrote. I mean, they were like,
I know.
19,
Oh,
20. Go ahead.
Can I just say, as a side note, there's a really great, I think it's Vanity Fair, Matt Damon talking about his career.
Mm-hmm.
And although he didn't talk about The Last Duel, he talked about another movie he's in. But it's like starts with Good Will Hunting and goes through. And it's so strange because when you look at him, you're like, that's Matt Damon. Like, it doesn't even look like him. He's really like changed throughout the years. And I mean, so has Ben Affleck. Like, Ben Affleck used to be skinny.
Yeah.
And now he's kind of like, he's Batman. So he's,
He did steroids. Don't sue me.
Probably. I'm sure that, well, even Matt Damon was born,
Yeah, he was
Jason
Bourne. Yeah.
That's interesting though. So did the two of them have a fallout? Because that would be kind of an allegory there, right? Like, the two real life writers who were friends. Because I heard that Matt Damon used to sleep on Ben Affleck's couch, or maybe it was vice versa. When they were writing Good Will Hunting, they had no money. And that would be interesting if maybe the two of them had a fallout.
Well, it is interesting, right? Okay, as writing partners, that they did not do another screenplay together, but also after they win an Oscar, it is kind of smart to go your own way. And there was this idea that Ben Affleck was the dumb one, and Damon was the worker, right? And I'm not saying, because, okay, everything in life is complex except for, I don't know, a lot of people I know, those people are simple. But like everything is complex, right? Like nothing is like a straight up like, oh, this person's stupid or smart or whatever, like that.
Yeah, again, there's more nuance. Nothing's completely black and white.
Exactly. So, but it does seem to show over time that Ben Affleck's writing credits far exceed Matt Damon's number one.
Yeah.
He far exceeds him as, I don't even
know. He did
know.
Argo.
Has Damon even ever directed anything? I don't know. And I'm not downing on that. Like Brad Pitt said he never wanted to be a director, and he's a fantastic actor. I mean, it's just not his cup of tea. So that is interesting that this is the first project they did, but it's also probably smart that they went their own way. And they brought in this Nicole Hofstner, which, try to pronounce her last name, I cannot, to write the female perspective, which I thought was very smart. Because,
I'm glad they did that, actually.
Yes.
I'm really glad they did that. That was very good.
I think it's so important in a case like this, because what I'm going to get to is the rape allegation that comes from, okay, so we've established that these two gentlemen don't like each other, right, Heidi? Right, everybody in the chat, do you think these guys are pals anymore? They're not.
They're very quiet.
They want to fucking kill each other, okay? These guys are destined to not die.
No,
of
I
old
mean the
age
people
their
in
bed.
the people in the chat are being quiet.
No, that's
not
fine.
not
No, but these two gentlemen really want to kill each other.
Yeah, they do.
So, but what I want to separate is just because there's all these as we look at trivial matters, right? Doesn't mean that this rape allegation is spawned from it. It does not mean everything needs to be treated, because you can have petty bullshit alongside realistic, very, very, obviously horrific circumstances. It doesn't mean that, oh, well, Matt Damon, Carouge hated Legree, so he's going to say his wife was raped by him, because there's all of these little situations in which will tell you that it seems like Carouge wouldn't have allowed, especially for the time. Like, if you look at the documentation or the, account of the rape, like, Legree goes in there with a buddy, and they're known to play their nightly games, even though they're squires. And this kind of goes for a lot of people, unfortunately, with history. Like, they kind of treat it like, and this is something worth noting, because, rape culture was very much prevalent back then, and it unfortunately still is today. But they used to say, like, Edward, Plantagenet, who married the White Queen, Elizabeth Woodville, would fake marry girls to bet them. Like, there's all these tricks that are essentially rape, that aren't cool. And they're like, oh, these scamps. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to even be funny, but, like, honestly, it's depicted as, like,
Justin,
these
can
guys
I just
are
tell you
scamps.
one thing?
Yeah.
When I was in school, I took a history of Canada course, like, before 1867. And this is one of the things, like, one of the very few things I remember from my history class. But there was a rule in Canada when if you had, like, say, asked a woman to marry you, and then you had sex with her, and got her pregnant, for instance, and refused to marry her after the fact, you could actually be executed for that. And the reason why was because a lot of these people who came over from the old world, like, to the new world, the woman's virtue was the only thing she had that was of value. So if you destroyed a woman's virtue, then she would be ruined, right? There's that expression, she's a ruined woman. And so this would have been in the 1600s. So if she said, yeah, this guy got me pregnant and was supposed to marry me and wouldn't marry me, he could be actually hanged for that.
Yeah, and there's a few other aspects that come into this. And this Todd Atkin he was a former House of Representative, and I'm just going to call him out. Now, there's this idea, especially in the medieval time, that you couldn't get pregnant if it was not consensual, because because a woman's body has ways. A woman must secrete. Okay, so, like, I'm just gonna go ahead and make the bad joke.
Oh, I know the story you're talking about. Yes,
yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and make the bad joke. Like,
this is so funny.
It's like everybody said that a woman had to have an orgasm to get pregnant. So, from my own experience, and from, I don't know, I'm a pretty good guy, but I don't know, maybe we'd have two people alive in this world. You know what I mean? Like, it's just very unrealistic. Like it's just this very much so, like, toxic, masculine, like, purview on everything. It's like, oh, a woman has to like it. She has to secrete this to do it. And a woman's body has, and unfortunately, all jokes aside, this is disgusting. This is things that were pushed in 2015 by the Republican Party. These are issues. We'd like to think that we're not as barbaric as we were back then, but we have not. Evolution is not linear, and there's quite a few cases of people saying that, even Legree says during his trial, she must have dreamt it. Can you imagine somebody saying that? It's not like he's saying he just didn't do it. But he's implying and inferring that she lusted after him, right? Because he's it's such a dickhead thing to say. And these things are not, this guy I got on screen right now, go ahead and send him a tweet if he's got Twitter. He's probably on that other one. But he's a piece of shit. Straight up, the guy's a piece of shit. Like, he was saying that, women cannot get pregnant from rape, blah, blah, blah. They have ways the body will.
Well, geez, that's interesting, because there's a lot of children of rape. Yeah. So, I mean, I did a play on it in the Sudan. So it's just like you just have to, you have to just read a book and you would know that that's absolutely not true, because that's part of what a genocide is. You go around and you rape women so that you can dilute the culture.
Yeah.
This has been something that's been going on for centuries and centuries. I just, yeah, I don't know. That stuff always cracks me up. It's the same one that says you can't get pregnant the first time you have sex. Like,
Well, that's actually true, Addie. That's true.
You don't need birth control because you're not going to get pregnant the first time you have sex.
Yeah, the Bible
so,
says it.
And also, yeah, and then you need an orgasm to
who do these guys think they are? Like, how many kids?
Because God knows there are millions of women out there, and I'm going to say this because I know this, who don't have orgasms. So how did they get pregnant, for God's sakes?
Yeah, I honestly, self-deprecating aside, I don't see that as a likelihood. That's like such a high-handed angle on it. But what this really comes down to is the issue with the male line, right? With the the nobility. They want to make sure that their kids are their kids, right? So they can't dispute it. And the Habsburg chin will, cover,
It's so funny though, because, Justin and I are working on another video. Well, I'm starting to work on it, that we're going to be doing together on, The Great, and also on what's the other one called? The Favorite.
Yes.
And it's so funny, like just reading, like how many children did not actually belong to, you're like, you read anything through history, you're like, wow, that actually those weren't his kids. Like those actually were somebody else's kids, but they were accepted in court as their kids. It's just amazing how this stuff happens.
Oh, and absolutely. And isn't it now scientifically proven, and forgive me, I'm a man of science, that the man dictates the sex, right?
Yeah.
So King Henry being all pissed off about all the girls he had.
Yeah, they didn't
I think
know
all
about
those
biology.
Fitzroy boys might not have been his.
I just want to say hi to Marta and OTDA are here, and also Alicia and Angel over.
No, yeah,
here.
Thank you everybody for stopping by.
Shout out to everybody who's here.
So we have this situation, and now she is accusing Legree of rape. So now you see the problem here, because I may be, I don't know, we were taking forever to get the stream ready, so I hope I conveyed this well enough, that there is a ongoing feud between these two. So you can't help but to consider, right, the fact that these people already didn't like each other. Now there's this rape. But here's where it gets really tricky. Because, number one, I don't have no foundation for what would have happened to Marguerite if this didn't go to trial by combat, but it goes to trial by combat, and if she is known as a false accuser, she will be burned at the stake. Okay? And that is a big part of the movie. I'll wait till about 10 minutes from now when we end this little chat to disclose what happens. But also, everybody seems...
Oh, don't tell me, because I want to see it, and I haven't read the book.
Well, everybody seems to go to... Okay, I won't. But everybody seems to go to great lengths, right? Okay, so here's another thing. Adam Driver's character, Legree, he's part of the clergy. If you know about the clergy, they have the right to a church trial. And just so happens, a lot of church members, a lot of clerics, end up accused of rape, murder, and the worst they can get is fines. He doesn't take it, though. When this happens, the first thing that Matt Damon's character does, Carouge, is he skips over. This is like going to the Supreme Court. He skips over Ben Affleck's Count Pierre because he
doesn't want to deal with it at the local level.
Yeah, because he knows that like the last time he literally bought land in Normandy, and he's like, "Can you sign this piece of paper for the land I bought?" He goes, "Fuck you." So like it is clear he's not going to get it. But also there's this what I found in my research. Hi Aria. Sorry, it's my cat. For anybody who says I don't like Aria, I named my damn cat after her.
I didn't even know that. I've known you for like 4 years and I had no idea.
Yeah, she was filled with oil. I found her in.
Is it Aria? Like, is it spelled like Aria, or is it Aria?
I don't know what the vet. Yeah, I might spell it however.
George says Aria.
Yeah, George also says Dothraki.
He does say Dothraki.
Yeah. So, anyways,
like a weirdo.
Yeah. Blow your mind. But so we have a situation in which he skips this process of going to the local court, which would be your liege lord. Again, jumps over his head and goes to King Charles. So now, me and Susan talked about this again, who helped commission the video that will be coming out this week about where we think, like these people are like really showing their true colors. Because I was like, man, he didn't take this cleric trial. He had every right, because he's a minor cleric, to take a church trial, right, Heidi? The guy doesn't take it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a military, like almost like a military trial as opposed to like a, a civilian
Yeah, so a
trial.
lot. So she brought up very good points. She brought up number one, there's lots of sociopaths that, like, Ted Bundy, all these people that have committed crimes and they stick by their innocence no matter what. Also, there's this chivalric like code, right, where like he doesn't want to lose face. And also, I came up with, because I'm just trying to think of it pragmatically. Okay, so when Matt Damon's character throws down the gauntlet, 'cause you literally have to do it. Throw down.
That's where the expression comes from.
Yeah, throw down the gauntlet.
Yeah, which is a glove.
Yeah.
Or a piece of armor.
Well, he borrowed a glove and he threw it down.
Okay.
It was his gauntlet. And so when he does that, what I think happens is Adam Driver's Legree, he does accept it because there's a degree of separation there, because Parliament still has to take about 8 months to decide if this matter cannot be addressed in a formal court. You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's this situation where, you got these guys that have had all these land feuds. They obviously don't like each other. Now Marguerite is saying she was raped by Legree, pretty much his arch enemy. Right?
Alicia put a very good comment. Did you read her comment?
Was he looking for the opportunity to legally kill the dude he had beef with? I have to believe, part of me believes he does, but that does not discount the fact that this woman, and this is what we're getting to, and this is a very hard topic to talk about, when it comes to these rape allegations, because I believe in true,
Hi, South London.
To true, due process. I believe that people, you shouldn't just automatically be guilty, and you shouldn't automatically discount a woman's accusation on any side. You need to just
there's also the ego. I mean, I saw the trailer in the theater, which, by the way, it looked amazing. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And it seemed to me there was ego there, because she's just like, are you sure you're doing this for me? Like, maybe
she's implying in that trailer that he is doing it for his honor.
His honor.
Yes. But
I think also some ego.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And you can see a clear path of why they chose this right now, because it is very relevant. Unfortunately so, guys. Yeah. It's very relevant. And that now it amps it up, because in Yeager's book in 2004, I believe this was written, I've read it 3 times now, he kind of romanticizes it. Like, he asks her right before, it's him asking her, like, lady, tell me now if you're lying, right? And all these things. So, like, there's all these things on the line, but everybody puts their neck on the block. And I can't, like, that's why I think it's so awesome that they're telling the story from 3 different perspectives, because trust me, if you look, okay, let's look at Adam Legree, not Adam, Jock Legree, Adam Driver. Yeah. Okay, this guy could have had a cleric's trial, could have avoided death at all. Like ultimately, like, no question about it. He had the best. His lawyer was the king's lawyer. All right, there are this is a very well documented actual event, like this whole issue, because of all the lawyering that had to go into it, and all of the the council that had to go into, meaning Parliament. So, like, there's a lot of good, like, it's all in Latin, but you can get it translated. It's kind of shitty, but you can.
Well, hi, LMR. LMR is saying she hasn't had a chance to see it. It's not officially out until when, Justin?
No, it's not out till mid-October. So what you're dealing with is with accusations that, if you look at all of these people individually in which they're writing the script, and it seems like we're going to get the start of the battle at the beginning and a flashback to Matt Damon's character, Adam's character, as well as Jodie Comer's character, Marguerite. So we're going to get everybody's perspective. But if you even look at it historically, okay, you would just think this guy would be like, I'm not going to die for this. Guess what he does, people? Mm-hmm. He not only does he skip his right as a cleric to take this trial, he tries to parlay a land deal in to say that also, if I win, I get this land from Carouge.
A little bonus.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't want to be funny about it. I don't want to be, but it's he
obviously thinks. I mean, that says to me that he thinks he's going to win.
Oh, he does now, and they're both 56 years old when they do this.
So the cast are way younger.
Yeah, but and it's amazing because there's that old medieval myth that people are die by 30, right? No, yes. Both these dudes are 56. Adam Driver.
I think that was an average. I think average age. People probably died in their 40s maybe, but that's because a lot of people who would have died of
Well,
disease and
you have to
things
look
like
at the
that.
plague and stuff like that because this is right
Yeah.
after the Black
And you
Plague.
and you
So.
said that his first wife and
Mhm.
child died from the plague, right?
Yeah, but these are two dudes, like AK just said. AK, I can't come to any other conclusion other than these dudes wanted to buck it out. But also,
Yeah.
it's not great for Marguerite, who is a daughter of a twice disgraced knight, comes from a family that is disennobled, right? Meaning they've fallen out of favor,
Mm-hmm.
to make this kind of claim. And I cannot find any documentation or any pertinent information per se to find out exactly like what would happen, Heidi, if it didn't go to this trial by combat. But by the end of it, everybody's neck's on the line. So everybody goes all the way out on this. This is a story about three people with a bunch of issues, a plethora of issues that they cannot, they just can't deal with. They have to get to this part, because I want to remind you, this might be the last judicial duel in France, but this is the first judicial duel in France in 100 years, a century. So this had not happened before. You have to look at the politics of this with King Charles, a young man. He's like 17, 16. This works well for him because also anytime the king gets to be involved in power, because if you know anything about Magna Carta over in England, doesn't apply.
Is that Charles the Sixth?
Yes, it's Charles the Sixth.
So it's funny because Justin and I did a review of The King with Timothy Chalamet, and so that would have been,
yes, he's in it.
His son, right?
No, he's in it.
The Dauphin. Charles the Sixth is in it, but the one that's played by
Robert Pattinson, yeah.
Robert Pattinson,
the
that's his son.
Yes.
The Dauphin, yeah.
But you see him, and he's syphilis ridden. He put bars in his clothes because he had syphilis, so he thought he would break.
God.
Which one I want, to be fair, that's a reasonable thing to do.
I have to say, like, whenever anybody fantasizes about this time period, how romantic it was nasty.
Yeah, chivalry died. Again, I want to point out that this is so this is in between, like, Crécy already happened. Crécy is when the English went and they killed a shit ton of Frenchmen with crossbows. And then at Agincourt, they killed a bunch with longbows and military.
And they slipped on the mud. Is that the Battle of Agincourt? I was talking about this today. I was like, oh my God, there's this amazing scene where Robert Pattinson gets off of his horse. He's in full armor. Yeah. And basically he just slips on the mud and he doesn't even have to do anything.
He does everything that you'd think you'd see in a movie with a sword. But the detailing of this fight is also great. And we won't do spoilers. We'll move on to Dune after this and leave it for the pre-prepared
I just want to say, Justin, there's just like the movie looks amazing. I saw a video. Sorry, my ears itchy. I saw a video where someone was breaking down the armor, and the only thing that is a little bit weird are the face shields.
No, I disagree because
really, you like those?
Oh, here's the thing. Okay, so now it's funny because at Yeager's book, right? Mm-hmm. Which I don't know what to think of Yeager, to be honest with you. And first off,
what's his background?
Thank you. UCLA.
Okay.
He seems pretty absent-minded on this. Now, I don't know if it's because he romanticizes it a lot. Like, AK is saying this seems pretty petty, right? Yeah. She's right. What I really want to, like, kind of drive home, and I think that, like, what Susan really wanted to, like, I think what Susan actually made me realize is that this is potent no matter what. Like, there are these petty issues, right, between these two men. But Marguerite's story, and I want to also stress that if Marguerite was not a noblewoman, that nobody would have gave a shit.
No, of course not. So and that's sort of how it is nowadays.
That's still bullshit. So this is a commentary on all of this. So like she's in these dire straits, right? Like she might get burned to death if her husband loses his duel, which we won't, reveal here. But at the same time, if she was just some farmer's wife, that would just been another row, right? That would just been another, tumble in the freaking hay. Or whatever. It's not okay. So this whole culture about having, like I said in the video, no lords without land, no land without lords. She is a piece of property, and it's not about if she's telling the truth. It's about the power of these men in this physical power as well.
That's kind of how I sort of look at it. It's sort of like if you were to look at it nowadays, it'd be like you took out my Porsche without asking my permission, and you went for a joyride and maybe you smashed it. So
Yeah.
now I'm going to take you to court. It kind of feels like that, like a woman is property. So it's like there's an ego thing going on there. I don't know that he genuinely loves her. I don't suspect that he does.
It's hard to say. Different standards,
Yeah,
different marriage relationships. You learn to love one another. It was looked at more.
yeah,
Honestly, I kind of look at marriage as a business relationship to begin with. And
yeah, it is.
I think
Yeah,
it's
for
more
sure.
realistic, and I do agree with that. It does seem like he's overbearing quite a bit, especially with who he leaves her with and how much she's guarded. Now, the time of her supposed assault, and I tend to believe her, but I'm also kind of like, I don't know, like,
Well, why would she, like, this is sort of like the, back to the Me Too movement. Why would she say it if it wasn't true?
there's no benefit to her.
Especially, there's no
The
benefit to
only
her
theory would
at
be that
all.
he pushed her to do it, but the way that it's depicted
Yeah,
belittles him as well, and he looks like a cuck, for lack of a better
yeah.
words. He literally looks like a cuck because he comes in. Number one, the guy Tom that comes to the door first off supposedly says that when he's out with 103-degree fever after coming back from England, like without anything, going to Paris to get his money for his campaign because he's so broke. They're saying that this guy came to the door originally to get an extension on his loan, which
Okay.
makes no sense. Okay, like this is like me borrowing money to you people. Like I'm not doing it. You know what I mean? Like it's like,
Hmm.
oh, can Justin get an oh, we owe Justin money. I mean, maybe somebody owes me 10 or 20 bucks, but you know what I mean? Like I'm not like a rich guy. So it's like it's kind of like BS on that part, but also it comes down to it's like just like you said it's about property, right? It's like
Hmm.
okay, so you harmed his property. Not
Yeah.
not the worth of her words, but like what is that property worth? And that's definitely, I don't know the right way to go about it, but I know this isn't it. And I think it's very poignant. I think it's very unfortunately relative to today in power, and people just sit back and let things happen, even especially with Legree's past escapades, Adam Driver's character, in which he's known to
Hmm.
like they call it playing games, right? Like Harvey Weinstein was known to play
Yeah.
games. Like these are things that we can't like just let go. Like so like I don't want to get like all like preachy
Well, and I
about
think
it,
that,
but it's
it's like
true.
also sometimes people will take something if they think that they can get away with it.
They
And
leverage. They
so,
leverage.
yeah, so if he's looking at her as being property of his former friend, he might be like, well, I'm going to take that. I think I can get away with it. I mean, this is why sometimes people do it. It's when they get caught that they're like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
and so he likely thought, if I can ingratiate myself, get in there. And I mean, her guard must have been down for some reason.
Well,
I'm not sure. I don't exactly remember the story. I remember he goes into her house,
yeah.
but
Well, she's left her alone
yeah,
in
which is unusual, by the way.
yes, it is. That's all of this, guys. That's why I really want to see this movie, is
Hmm.
because all of these accounts are very persuasive. Because number one, she was staying with her mother-in-law Nicole.
Yeah.
In this
So there's
case,
no witnesses too. That's the other thing,
well,
right?
she
There's
was
no
called away
witnesses.
to official business over
Yeah. So
some it like
that seems
13 miles
unlikely.
away. Now he actually does have character witnesses, not just character, but like actual like
Hmm.
I forget what you call it, but he has people that can place him like 30 miles away or something at this point.
Hmm.
But at this time, obviously, there's no CTV or anything like
Yeah,
that.
that's what I was saying to you. It has the feeling of almost like an acquaintance, right? What I would put in like in a modern term, like she knows him. It's somebody who she knows. It's not someone who's just snatched her in a back alley and raped her. This is someone who's is known to her, even though her and her husband haven't. So left alone with no guards. Yeah, it seems kind. I don't think she's as high. I don't think they're as high ranking as what Justin was just describing. He's more like a squire,
Yeah, but
an
the
adult
squire
squire.
pulls a lot of weight. You have to understand that
Hmm.
this squire actually has a group of people that fight under
Yeah,
him.
AK says it sounds like a setup. It does.
It does.
It does. It
And
just seems too like I'm gonna call away her mother-in-law or what have you, her mother, and so that she's alone, and then they'll arrange to have it kind of like a Harvey Weinstein again, like Harvey Weinstein gets his agent to call an actress to his hotel room under the guise that he wants to talk to her about a part.
She
And
thinks it's an
then
audition, not a date.
he thinks it's an audition, and then he gets her alone, and then he's there with his disgusting robe, no,
Yeah.
like, and he can kind of corner her. It sort of feels a bit like that, like a bit of a setup, like AK's saying.
And yes, and now the one belief is, and even Yeager says this from his research, and I kind of get this too, is that I think that Legree thought once Carouge came back, Matt Damon's character, from his campaign with nothing, because he stops at the court first, the local court with Pierre, and he kind of lets it slip, like, where she'll be. So there's, like, like a little bit of, like, information that, like, it would make sense, like, how would they know where she is? But also his fiscal status would have been revealed, right? But also he would have been bragging to Legree that he had been the only thing that Carouge gets out of this escapade, this campaign in England, is a knighthood. So now remember, Legree is not a knight until the day that they do Mortal Kombat. So he maybe
it's like a Knight's Tale. In a Knight's Tale,
it really is.
He knights him right at that before the last.
You have to fight on even
jousting event.
Yeah,
so he can fight head to head with the other knight.
Yeah.
Do you want to read Marta's comment? She wrote a very good comment.
Yeah. I also want to put forth the idea of that Legree likely would have thought that he could have easily conquered her, right? Because he looks at Carouge as kind of a loser.
Yeah.
So he would have thought this. So her denial of his advance would have been motive, in my opinion, right? Like, he would have got angry because he thinks he's like a bigger man, and there's this competition that has been set by Pierre or whatever it is. It's not all right.
Or maybe he thought that she would have been happy with it.
Yeah, he did. Like, I think he went with every intention of, oh my God, I'm a good.
I'll just, I'll show up and she'll be like, yeah,
I'm the shit. I'm so cool. That and all this. Okay, so we got, but also wasn't her mother-in-law kind of against her because she considered Marguerite not a good wife? She was not getting pregnant. Okay, so that's where this comes in. So Maria, good point. So Nicole Carouge.
That's Marta.
Sorry, Marta. Nicole Carouge is pretty much not. She's not against Marguerite's testimony, but she does not. I guess she is, because she does not push it. She does not further it. She does not back it. She is conveniently called to a matter of state, right? During this time, something that they can actually account for her being gone. And she's left at this house alone. She was not a big fan of Marguerite. Marguerite had struggled to get pregnant beforehand. Now she was pregnant at this time, so it's now still up in the air again. And that's where this disgusting narrative comes in of, can a woman get pregnant if she is raped? Which obviously at this time, and it's disgusting, but they said, no, she can't. She would have to consent. She has to secrete this. She has to do this. She has to be pleasured. And all these things that are just so unlikely and so disgustingly ignorant that maybe, I don't forgive them, but I'll tell you who I definitely don't forgive. People in 2016 that still said the same thing. And this is a narrative that is still pretty, it's prevalent today, and unfortunately it is. And it's something that I believe that, like I was talking to Susan.
Now, I'm trying to remember, is she pregnant by the time the trial happens? I forget.
She has the baby. They wait.
Oh, they wait. Okay, yeah. Because you can't execute a woman when she's pregnant, by the way.
Yeah, well, they decide not to. I guarantee in the film they're going to make a case, because Isabella and Charles VI, their first child is also born. They both have boys. And the king's child dies. If I'll bet money, I know nothing of this plot, but I bet this is all fictional, right? That they will act like if Matt Damon's character dies, they'll take his son and hold him as their own, right?
Yeah,
because the queen's child dies, unfortunately, like 3 months before. So they do allow her to give birth, and they allow her to do this, but again, it's not. I think it's a very important story. Number one, we're so enticed by these action-packed stories of trial by combat, right? Like with Oberyn Martell and, you know, Jaime Lannister and, you know, Bronn and all these people from Game of Thrones. This is the last judicial combat in France, and this is a very trust me, guys.
Yeah,
the Holy Trinity ain't no joke. When I listen to it when I mow the lawn, and it's enticing. That chapter is so good. It's disgusting, but it's so good. I won't reveal.
It's actually interesting because in Outlander, if anybody watches Outlander, I haven't watched all the seasons, but at least 4. There's actually a duel that happens in Outlander in 1740, I believe, in France, and it's illegal then. So Jaime is so what they used to have to do it sort of under the cover of like dawn or whatever. They would do it at dawn, and but it would have been illegal. So if you caught, you would be thrown in jail.
Yeah, well, I'll end it with this: is that you have to understand this happened outside of a monastery, and you have 2 tents, and then you also have 2 towers. They talk about the cost of the horses, the gear. There are no seconds in this situation. This is not a duel like Alexander Hamilton or anything like that, who said duels are stupid and died by a duel, and stuff like that. Like, but they will drop food to them. This is lance. That is not a blunt lance. This is a holy trinity, people. This is lance, sword, and axe, and then eventually wrestling and sidearms is what it comes down to. But it's very brutal.
It's kind of very gladiatorial, right? It's kind of like, that's why I was saying.
Even if one didn't die, Heidi, they would have. They
very buggered up.
No, but if like one loses and they can't kill him, they would then they would still get rid of him.
Yeah, they'd have
somebody
to.
needs to die.
Yeah, it's interesting because sorry, I lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Justin.
No, I found this.
I have something interesting in my mind.
No, go ahead. No, go. But I just found this to be Eric Yeager's book is very well written. I'm not a huge fan of him overall. Susan, who commissioned the money to get these videos done and the research and all that, and thank you so much, Susan. You know, there's a lot of information that comes forth, and there's like all of these source accounts. This is something that happened in the 14th century, people, that is better documented than Anne Boleyn's death.
Yeah.
It's something to take note of. You know, like it's really interesting.
Well, obviously, a lot of people went to it. It was pretty, like, whereas Anne Boleyn, you know, there wouldn't have been that many people probably at her.
Well,
it's
just a general reference, but yeah, no, it would.
Yeah.
But it's just like this
would have been like a huge sporting event.
Yeah,
you know,
you've got the king over in Flanders saying like he blows the whistle. He's like, "Time out, fellas." Got to go over that judicial duel. Like, literally, like, it's not even a joke. He literally did that. They're like, what the fuck is that guy doing? He's like, don't worry, I'll get syphilis. It'll be even crazier 20 years from now. No, it's a very good book, and there's source accounts from it because of all the legal proceedings that had to happen. Because, again, like, I when he threw the gauntlet, you still had to get Parliament to go through it. And approve it to say that this is the only way to solve it. One thing I'd like to throw in their face is, isn't the king the voice of God? And they consider trial by combat the gods deciding. So it's like, it's so stupid. It's like, well, but
it's kind of weird. Well, they're kind of like under the Pope. The king would be under the Pope, and then, but yeah, in a way. But I guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you say, let God decide.
Yeah, let God decide. Like, just like in Africa, they get a text message, and he's like, oh yeah, no, that's not me. That's somebody else.
So same with trial by combat. It's in Game of Thrones.
They ignore
it
sort of conveniently. It's like, I don't have that privilege here because this is not advantageous for me. I just find it to be a little bit convenient. You know what I mean? I'm like, wait a minute. So you want to let God decide? I'll be like, didn't you just say you were God the other day in court? He's like, well, I'm like, and I probably, that's why.
Well, I think the king. I think the king is chosen by God. I think that's the idea. But
he's the conduit, just like, well, I mean,
the king is under the Pope.
Well, yeah, not King Henry, but you know, because he wanted his divorce.
The French king, because the Pope would have reigned supreme, like in France and Italy and England, and up until Henry.
This actually would have been during the time of the Avian Pope, meaning the Great Schism. So you would have had 2 different popes, a pope in Rome and a pope in France.
Oh. Neat.
Yeah, no, it is neat. Yeah, it's interesting. But no, I really, Thank you again, Susan. And that video is coming forth, and I don't know what I find. I was talking to Heidi about
And
this earlier.
we'll definitely do a video on the costumes.
Oh my God, yeah,
Because the costumes look amazing.
I want to get your insight on it.
Yeah,
No,
Justin's going to produce it.
yeah, no, and I was just telling Heidi earlier, like, how hard it is for me to actually, like, put out. I don't know what it is. It's just so difficult. I get in my own head, and it's so hard for me to do. I'm like, I shouldn't present it that way. I could present it this way. I'm trying to be so profound or this. So it's like, it's a little bit of, but thank you so much for the, void of confidence and all that. So we'll definitely get it done for you. Susan Dunckel is she's a saint. All right.
She said I think she was at work, so she said she's gonna come in later. But maybe she can just watch it on the replay.
Oh yeah, but I would fight for her in Trial by Combat. That would be easier for me to do, Susan, than that video. Like, honestly, like, I could fight a guy easy peasy. Okay, so
South London says that in the trailer, I think it's a he. South London, you're a he, right? I forgot. Says the accents sound pretty good. Yeah. And I think it looks good. Like I earlier today, I sent Justin a review, and I kind of disagreed with it because, well, the first thing she said was that the mullets look, were inaccurate, and I'm like, they weren't. They actually did wear hair like that. So that made me realize then that the reviewer, maybe they don't know their history.
Oh, they might be stupid. Yeah, that's likely the case.
Because as soon as the movie came out and I looked at it and I was like, okay, I'm trying to remember. So I actually, Aston, who's one of my friends, I said, and we were like, yeah, no, those are actually proper style. Like, that's where the mullet probably came from originally.
Well, think about wearing a helm, people. Think about what you'd want. You'd want long hair in the back.
Yeah, you'd want it to be short on top.
Raw. Yeah, so you have to think about things pragmatically,
and also they would have worn a coif, which would have, for sure. So the male coif underneath it, and they do show Matt wearing that at one point. So, and then she was talking about his beard, and I was like, well, I don't know what you're going on about. But anyway, so the reviews so far are looking pretty promising. I did a poll on my channel asking what the most anticipated film was. So I had The Last Duel, I had Dune, and I had The Green Knight. Three kind of the trifecta, really awesome movies. So I'm really looking forward to it. And for sure, I will do a caution breakdown, and Justin will produce that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into Dune for now.
Okay. Do you mind if I take one quick moment?
Oh, absolutely.
I just have to go. I'll turn off my camera. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. She's definitely not using the bathroom, anybody. She's definitely.
No, I'm not using the bathroom.
Yeah, no, okay.
I am. I am. I just had a coffee and a water. I'll be right back.
No. So Heidi just saw at the I want to say Toronto Film Festival. Yes, Toronto Film Festival. Dune. So we will do a spoiler free from there. But yeah, I can't be happier with people supporting it. And Eric Yeager's book, let me link it really quick because it's just fantastic. And again, this video was commissioned by Susan Dunckel. She paid money for me to research this, and she's getting a full-fledged video. But I can't thank her enough, and her insight has been nothing short of just immaculate. It's been so good. So let's see. Really looking forward to Dune. Yeah, no, Heidi just got me Dune, and I just started listening to it. Let's see. We'll take a 2-minute break here. And I got you AK on that message. I just saw it. But you have to think, when you look at like stuff like people dismissing the privilege of a trial through the church, which they cannot be found, like, for any like capital punishments off the table, for lack of better verbiage, but they can't die. They just keep going. Like, everybody in this story, that's why it's so important that they have 3 people writing these 3 perspectives, because every one of these perspectives, people, makes sense. And petty issues can reside alongside very serious issues. It doesn't dismiss the rape allegation. It doesn't also, to be fair, it doesn't also confirm it, right? So you have to do things. You have to use due process. You have to look at it. We need to stop listening to status and, oh, what did she have to gain from saying this and stuff like that. These are disgusting ideals that we have, that we've kept since the 16th, this show in the 14th century. It's very, it's kind of a downer, and I want to be a downer, but honestly, when I started looking into like the information about people that claim that women can't get pregnant from rape and stuff like that, I just honestly, it made me want to throw up. It really did. It just makes me sick. So it's not preaching, but at the same time, we need to be aware that there's still a mindset out there that is very much so ignorant, right? So we have to be aware of that, and we have to shut that type of shit down, because we'd like to think that we're miles away from the 14th century, but I think we might only be a few inches, if even that, in some aspects. So, again, due process for everybody. Nobody should be condemned at the moment of allegation, but also due process should happen. Does that mean 2 men should fight to decide if that woman should die or if she's right or not? That makes no sense whatsoever. That's ridiculous. If they want to fucking kill each other, fucking let them kill each other. You know what I mean? Again, 2 men destined not to die of old age in their bed. So Heidi just got back.
Yay! I brought a glass of wine.
There you go.
It's been a long day.
No, it has. Yeah. So we got Dune. You just saw it, so you can. I'm gonna let you take the lead on this.
I have the book here.